Welcome back, Devils fans. It is your host, Ace, here on Running with the Devils, where we are talking New Jersey Devils hockey all year long. Please hit that subscribe button, smash the like, share with a friend. Thank you very much. And I appreciate the continued support from all of you, from watching the videos to smashing that thumbs up like button, all of your comments. And the past couple weeks, I would say, the fan base as a whole has been very chatty as to their opinions and thoughts on the season that unfortunately ended with us losing to the Carolina Hurricanes in round one in 5 games. And a lot of you have made some good points, a lot of interesting thoughts. And so I thought I would do another Mailbag Edition where I pull up some of the comments that some of you have made and respond to it in a video, because some of you write a lot of stuff. Some of you make very short comments. Some of you kind of write novels. And so I'm going to just pull up a few that I've selected here and kind of address them in a video format. I appreciate all of you once again. I do try to respond to every comment. I think I've been pretty good about that historically. I might miss one or two here or there, but I do try to respond to everyone that does make a comment. And so thank you for that. I do appreciate it. It helps the videos, get out to more people, more Devils fans, and kind of keep growing this little community we have going here. And it's been a fun ride. It has been a fun ride indeed. And so without further ado, I will jump into the first comment here from a fairly frequent contributor, live stream chatter. Chico Tazo 69 writes, I think calling it a wasted season is a little harsh. I'm disappointed with how it ended, but I think any season you make the playoffs can't be a waste, really, especially for the spot the Devils are in their development as a core. For me, injuries aren't an excuse for the organization as a whole, but I do grade the players themselves on a curve for that. It came out that basically everyone was playing hurt, and they still made it a tough series for Carolina. I'm really encouraged by the season, to be honest. I think this Devils team showed us a lot of fight. Still not happy about Fitz's trade deadline. Sure, the prices were crazy, but Taylor Hall and Fabian Zetterlund moved for 1 second-round pick each. He gave up a 7th for Sprong and then admitted he was on waivers when they considered grabbing him, but he's already making moves. Devils insiders reported that he's hired Greg Ackerman from the Mariners and the MLB specifically for injury prevention, so hopefully that helps. Fitz has to knock it out of the park in the offseason, though. Anyway, thanks to denial and vivid hallucinations, I'm getting ready to watch the Devils in the Eastern Conference Finals versus the Florida Panthers. Let's go Devils. Thank you for this comment, Chico. A lot to unpack here. I'm going to start with line 1. I think calling it a wasted season is a little harsh. Chico, I have to disagree. I don't think it is harsh at all. At all. We limped into the playoffs after a very promising start. We set an NHL record in December, allowing opponents only 20 shots or less in 7 straight games. Had a nice cushion built up. We're looking like, amongst the elite teams of the league, a true blue cup contender, and then everything fell apart in the second half. And we get bounced in 5 games. And so I, unfortunately, have to disagree here. I think it was completely a wasted season. There was no progress, in my opinion. No steps forward as a group. We are no closer to winning the cup than we were 2 years ago. In fact, we're further back, in my opinion, from where we were. I do like a lot of the guys on the team, but there needs to be a lot of tweaking for us to get to that next level, and I have to call it a wasted season. No other way for me to look at it. Loser mentality. This is should be at least a win-now group with the pieces in place, and we're not maneuvering like a win-now team, and that has been my biggest gripe for a long time, and as you all know, it's well documented, my thoughts on this kind of overall, and then when you go on to say, can't be a waste really, especially for the spot the Devils are in their development as a core. And that's where I'm like, come on, Chico. Their development as a core, 2 of our best players. Again, I keep beating the dead horse, but I have to keep saying it till it really registers with people. Their development as a core, nicohischier and jesperbratt just completed their 8th NHL season. 8th season in the league for both of these men. Undoubtedly 2 of our best players. And what do they have to show for their 8 years in the league as of right now? A single playoff round win against the Rangers in that glorious 22-23 season. 1 playoff round win and 7 total playoff games won in 3 total appearances. They made it their rookie season, obviously, when Taylor Hall dragged us there before Tampa mopped us pretty well in the first round in 5 games. The 22-23 season where we beat the Rangers, 1-1 against the Canes and got bounced in the second round. And then this previous season where we were bounced out in 5. And so for, 8 seasons to be in the books for the captain, Nico Hischier and Jesper Bratt, 8 seasons, 1 single playoff round won, and 7 total playoff games won. Completely unacceptable. It's gross. nauseating, any other word you want to use to describe it. And honestly, it makes my stomach turn. That is complete malpractice on so many levels at so many turns. This cannot be the reality, but it is. One single playoff round one in 8 years in the league for these guys. I mean, enough is enough. At what point are we going to say, you got to put the chips in the middle? I'm not saying to mortgage the future and go do crazy stuff, but our development as a core, 2 of our best players have been in the league for 8 years. They're going to be approaching 30 soon. I mean, the time to win is now. It couldn't be any more clear. Let me see what else. You got a lot in here. Everyone was playing hurt, but again, you know, that's kind of a constant around the league. No team is 100% healthy, especially this time of year in the playoffs. Guys are fighting stuff, and so the injuries is just another crutch. I don't know if it's a coping mechanism for fans or another crutch for upper management to kind of lean on, but I'm tired of hearing about it. But the Devils did show us some fight, as you referenced, at some points of the season. At some points, they had absolutely no fight. Consistently inconsistent, another theme of the season. And as far as you say here, still not happy about Fitz's trade deadline. Yeah, the trade deadline was tragic, and that's why I was so furious on deadline day. You know, I wanted to see some sort of impactful moves made that would help the team down the stretch into the playoffs. And then obviously in the playoffs, we didn't see it. The moves were underwhelming. None of them moved the needle whatsoever. I will say the Dumoulin acquisition worked out well for the team just because of all the injuries on defense. And Dumoulin stepped up and played well. But in the end, that wasn't the difference between winning games or not, and we needed that help up front. It never came. And then you say prices were crazy, but Taylor Hall and Fabian Zetterlund moved on for 1 second-round pick each. Now, again, not to do one of these, but your boy Ace did in January, I believe, put out a video talking about how I was very intrigued by Taylor Hall, how I thought he would have been a very good piece for the Devils to target, put the bad blood behind us with how he left on his first stint as a Devil. And I thought it really was one of those kind of low-risk, high-reward type moves. And you're seeing what Taylor Hall's doing in Carolina. And so I know a lot of people, when you bring stuff up like this, like to make excuses and everything. But in the end, I am no NHL GM. I am just a passionate fan like many of you that I would like to believe is fairly knowledgeable. And I put that video out in January. Go get Taylor Hall. A lot of you agreed with me. A lot of you still kind of hold the grudge like it's an old ex-girlfriend or something, and you didn't want him back. But a lot of people did agree. And I put that out in January. And so I do think Taylor Hall was a huge miss. You're seeing what he's doing in Carolina. He fit in really well there. And they're on to the Eastern Conference Finals. It would not shock me if the Canes won the Cup. Wouldn't shock me whatsoever if they somehow finally got it together this year, despite it being a season for the Canes that everyone called a quote-unquote down year, right? A lot of people were like, oh, they're not as good as they have been in some previous seasons, and their regular season record reflected that as well. But here we are, a team that is dedicated to winning, has shown a will and desire to win, and finds a way to get it done under Rod Brind'Amour. Great coach, great program, and here we are. Taylor Hall, a big piece of that team, and I wouldn't be stunned if they found a way to do it. It would make me sick, but I wouldn't be surprised. And then as far as Zetterlund goes, again, another no-brainer, right? I think Zetterlund would have been a great piece for this Devils team heading into the playoffs and for the playoffs. A lot of people were upset that he was included in the Timomeier deal, but in the end, you have to give to get, and I'm not mad at it. I love Timomeier. You guys all know how I feel about him. One of the only types of players that we have that kind of fit that mold of an agitator, a physical bull, could score, could hit. Love Timomeier, and so, you know, no sour grapes for me, including Zetterlund in the deal. It sucked to include him, but it is what it is. You got to give to get. Would have loved to get him back, even knowing that he wasn't going to re-sign for something cheap. I do think there was reports out that he was looking for like top 6 kind of money, like maybe $6 million a year. But listen, even as a rental, I would have taken the chance. Win now, and there's no way that Zetterlund would not have been a great piece for this team. And a lot of us were talking about bottom 6 kind of additions to tweak the team at the deadline. I think both Zetterlund and Taylor Hall would have played in our top 6. That's how much help the offense needed. I think both of those guys could have been top 6 guys, but it's water under the bridge. Didn't happen, but I agree with you. Taylor Hall and Zetterlund, 2 big misses. Would have loved to see both of them. And then you go on to say he gave up a 7th for Sprong and then admitted he was on waivers when they considered grabbing him. Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not going to make a big deal out of it. A lot of you know how I feel about draft picks, specifically like 7th-round draft picks. Yeah, we got Bratter with a late pick and hit the lottery, but that doesn't happen too often. especially for the Devils. And so a 7th-round pick essentially is worthless to me personally. And so I'm not too aggravated by that acquisition. My problem is that cannot be one of your main acquisitions. Like Glass and Sprong. In a vacuum, I wouldn't have been mad at those trades whatsoever. But that has to kind of be the second or third line down when you're talking about deadline moves. There has to be a move that moves the needle. And I do think Taylor Hall and or Zetterlund could have been kind of that headline acquisition with guys like Glass and Sprong as the kind of second billing. But that was the headline. Completely underwhelming. Did not move the needle, as we all know. And then you go on to say he's already making moves. Devils insiders reported he's hired Greg Ackerman from the Mariners and the MLB specifically for injury prevention, so hopefully that helps. I don't know exactly who this guy is. I will look into him. I'm assuming he's some sort of, medical whatever. Again, I've talked about this. I don't know what any of these medical professionals could do to prevent some of these injuries. I don't think it's as a result of any sort of negligence or malpractice on the training staff's part. I just think the unfortunate reality is that this roster has a lot of guys that are injury prone. And by injury prone, I mean typically are getting hurt every year, every other year with a history of it. I wish there was some magic potion or some magic sort of program that could be installed that would prevent it. But I personally am not buying it. I don't know what they could be doing to prevent this stuff. Injuries are going to happen, but it's happened way too often to the Devils. And like I said, when you have injury-prone guys, you're going to see it. And then you go on to finish. Anyway, thanks to denial and vivid hallucinations, I'm getting ready to watch the Devils in the Eastern Conference Finals versus the Florida Panthers. Let's go Devils. I wish it was the case, Chico. I really wish it was the case, but I will say, again, as I've talked about all season long, in my opinion, the Florida Panthers were kind of the standard. They showed what it takes to go far and consistently win in this league and go deep in the playoffs. They got Matthew Tkachuk, and it literally transformed their franchise. The day they got Matthew Tkachuk, the Panthers have been on a completely different trajectory ever since. They go to the Cup Finals and lose in his first year there, and then they go to the Cup Finals last year and finally get it done, beat the Oilers and McDavid. And now this year, they are on the verge of going to the conference finals again. And so you're talking about, now I'm talking about playoff series, right? So in Tkachuk's first year in Florida, they went 3-1 in playoff series. And then last year, they won the Cup, meaning 4-0. So heading into this season that we're in right now, the Panthers were 7-1 in playoff series in the last 2 seasons. And right now, they're on the verge of being 2-0 this year, which would bring them to an astonishing 9-1 if they get it done. They would have won 9 of the previous 10 series. I mean, this is how winning teams are built. They play playoff hockey. They grind you down. Don't shy away from the rough stuff. They have skill. They have grit. They have guys that are both. And to me, they're the model franchise in the league right now. I just don't see how anyone who continually talks about how physicality is overrated and all this stuff, you need dogs. You need absolute dogs that go to war. And these playoffs have been grueling. And that Maple Leafs Panther series has been very interesting, and you've seen the Panthers impose their will on teams, including the Maple Leafs at times. I mean, they smoked them in their own building to take the series lead. Look no further than the Florida Panthers, guys. This is what I've been talking about for quite some time now, and the evidence is overwhelming. Anyone who's still in denial, unfortunately, is just lost because the proof is there. The Panthers are the model franchise, and they have been for a couple seasons now, and they're looking to get it done again. I would not be surprised if they win either. They could easily be back-to-back Cup champs, in my opinion. But I would love to see the Devils, get to the conference finals against the Panthers one day. Hopefully soon. Next year, it'd be amazing. But, yeah, you wrote a lot there, Chico. Thank you for that. And I will go on to the next comment from, I don't even know how to say this, Highstick28, I guess. Highstick28 says, a lot of good points that I am in total agreement with. However, everyone wants players with skilled grit. I've said it before, the player needed was Tom Wilson, and I would have offered him a number that he couldn't refuse when he was going into unrestricted free agency. Maybe getting a Brady Tkachuk here is something that needs to happen sooner than later at whatever ridiculous cost it would be. Trading for or getting top-tier scrit, trademark pending, I like that, is really, really hard. The core of this team just doesn't represent any of these qualities. Adding another Hughes brother only further moves the team toward more speed and skill. Don't get me wrong, Quinn is a monster, but not the total answer for deficiencies of this roster. Without Fitz really having a bunch of aggressive offseason moves, I'm afraid, like you are, that this will simply be same story next spring. We all know the players and the salaries that have to get moved to make the needed roster changes. Yes, it will be hard, but that is why Fitz has the job and not us. I wager that the continuity of his paycheck will depend upon doing exactly that. Wow, a lot to get to here. HighStick28, thank you for your comment. And I do think most people, not everyone, most people want players with skilled grit. I do think most people that have watched this game for any sort of time have realized that that is a necessary component to win in this league, period. This is a contact sport. This is a violent sport. You need the guys like that to win. Every team has at least a couple of them. The Devils have a couple. I hope we get a couple more because it's not enough. We need more. That needs to be ingrained in the DNA of the team. And it rubs off on guys. You'll see it. There's guys that may have not been the most physical in the past, but when all of a sudden these other guys are plugged into the lineup, it becomes a little contagious. Not that these other guys are going to become, Hercules overnight, but they start to get a little bit of that snarl in their game as well because of all the other guys around them doing it, and the Devils desperately need it. Hopefully they find a way to do it, but I do like your term of scrit. That is pretty funny. A combination of skill and grit, trademark pending, good for you. Tom Wilson is one of those guys. Love Tom Wilson. Would have loved to see him on the Devils from years ago. Me and Steve the Maniac have talked about him. He's a guy that really is a combination of all those things. He has the skill. He could score goals. He absolutely crushes people. Not afraid to mix it up. And he's probably amongst one of the best guys that kind of fit that mold in the league right now, I would say. Absolute monster. I'd love a guy like him. I'd have to imagine he will be a Capital probably for his whole career. And then on to, obviously, the white whale. My favorite non-Devils player in the league, Brady Tkachuk, is a unicorn, guys. Brady's a unicorn. I said it last season. I'm not going to go on and on about Brady Tkachuk, but he just does everything, does it well. The ultimate kind of captain and just leader of a team. And you saw, I think the world saw, actually, what I have been openly kind of praising and talking about for a while now. In the Four Nations. In the Four Nations tournament, you really saw the dog that Brady Tkachuk is, and I think hockey fans, specifically American ones, really embraced him and appreciated what he does at a much larger scale because that was just amazing. An amazing tournament. The opening fights with Canada in the first game, it was all great stuff. I love Brady Tkachuk. Unfortunately, I do think that ship has sailed. I did think heading into last offseason, we had a good chance with that number 10 overall pick and some other pieces. I do think if Fitz really put on a full court press, there was a chance we could have got him. But the Senators are committed to him. They went out and got Ullmark and kind of, put a lot of faith in him that he could help turn the team around. And they did. Listen, they made the playoffs. Was a much shorter appearance than they would have liked. But Brady finally got a taste of playoff hockey. It seems like things are going in the right direction in Ottawa now. Am I going to say I believe they're going to really contend for a cup anytime soon? Probably not, but you never know. You never know. With a couple right trades or free agent signings, they could kind of tweak that roster and maybe make a deeper run. But I think Brady just wanted to see some progress, and he got it. They got Ullmark. They made the playoffs, and so I do think Brady is a very loyal guy. I do think he likes playing in Ottawa for the most part. He is the captain there. And so for me, the Brady dream has officially died. And it sucks because I thought last season, like I said, we could have made a play for him, but it didn't happen. And I think he's going to be in Ottawa for a while. I don't see it happening. But I will say, in the event that Ottawa is ever shopping him, if Brady does go to upper management and say, listen, I tried, blah, blah, blah. It's time for me to move on. If that happens, Fitz must do everything in his power to get him to New Jersey because he would just be, what a piece to be in the red and black for the Devils. But like I said, the dream has died for me. I don't see it happening, and so you must look elsewhere. I have some ideas, early ideas, for guys that I think could kind of fit this mold, and I will be having some videos come out about that in the next couple of weeks as well. But Brady, I've kind of given up on. And then you go on to say, the core of this team just doesn't represent any of these qualities. I will have to disagree with you there because my man Timomeier is an absolute bull. In my opinion, he was easily the second best Devils forward in the playoffs, only to Nico Hischier. Nico was hands down the best forward in the playoffs, but I think Timo was second. Not as much production as we would have liked to see maybe from Timo in the points department or goals, but he was hitting guys, he was creating, he was getting under people's skin, and that's what you need. You need guys like that are really going to go to war in the playoffs, and I think Timo did just that. Even a lot of the Timo detractors or Timo haters, I would say, I think, kind of realized that in the playoffs, and you need more guys like that. But I do think Timo does fit the mold. And so when you say the core of the team doesn't represent any of it, I have to disagree a little bit there just because I think Timo does. Then you go on to talk about the Quinn thing. Adding another Hughes brother only further moves the team toward more speed and skill. I do agree with that, but I don't think they are, mutually exclusive. I think you can get Quinn, and obviously with a chain of other moves, because to do any of this stuff, it's going to require trading guys out to free up salary, obviously. But I do think you can get Quinn and also get some of the guys to bring in some of this skilled grit to kind of just start molding this team in a different direction, because it certainly needs another direction. As things are right now, it's just not enough, and they're not getting it done. Hopefully, we see some big changes that really do transform what we see on the ice for the 25-26 season. But Quinn, very intriguing. One of the top 10 players or so, I would say, in the league. Whenever you have a chance to get a guy like this, you got to try to do it. And the ownership group and all the big execs are all in on the Hughes business, and completing the trifecta of Hughes brothers is just something they can't resist. And like I said, I like Quinn a lot. Now, do I think there's other guys that would help this team and fill needs that we have right now more so than Quinn? Absolutely. Absolutely. With some of the defensive depth we have at the moment, assuming everyone's healthy, obviously. That's another video coming out in a week or two about the defense as a whole. But we do have pieces on defense, and the glaring holes are up front with the offense. And so, yes, I do agree there are far more pressing needs than getting a guy like Quinn Hughes. But anytime you could get a guy like him, even if you don't necessarily have a positional need, you got to try to make it happen, because not only is he, one of the best players in the league, his offensive production alone would put him amongst the highest on the team. It really would. And sometimes a good offensive defenseman out there a lot is going to take pressure off of the defense and our goaltending. Anytime you could play with the puck in the O zone instead of the D zone, love to see it. And Quinn's going to provide that. And so I do think he would help the team for sure, would make this a better team immediately. But I do agree there are other needs that I think are more pressing. But you have to realize the writing's on the wall, and the team is going for Quinn. And I'm not mad about it. I just hope they make the other moves in conjunction with that to really help the team get more balanced and more productive, specifically in the bottom six. And then you go on to say, without Fitz really having a bunch of aggressive offseason moves, I am afraid, like you are, that this will simply be the same story next spring. Yeah, that's everyone's biggest fear, right? Fitz did have a great offseason last offseason. I praised him for it several times, but I also followed it up with moves need to be made in season. That is when the real championship teams are kind of molded. And we haven't seen that from him in the past couple seasons. And so I am very kind of reluctant, anxious, whatever you want to call it. We haven't seen enough in the season for me to have faith in him, obviously. You guys all know how I kind of feel at this point with where we were in 22-23 to where we are now. And there's been no progress. But Fitz has his work cut out for him. We'll see what he could do. Does he try to move out any of the big salaries? Does he try to make any big splashes? But again, off-season moves are fine. In season is when you really make a push. And you've seen it, with guys in this playoff now, right? I mean, look no further than the Hurricanes. A lot of people question the Natchez deal. They brought in Rantanen. It didn't work out. He didn't want to sign there. What do? They go and flip Rantanen. They bring in Stankhoven, who has fit in really well there. And they also made that deal for Taylor Hall, and both of them are shining right now. And they're in the conference finals. So, and then on the flip side of that, Dallas went out and got Rantanen, and they're on the verge of making the conference finals as well. And so, to me, off-season moves are great. Obviously, you need to make them heading into pretty much every season to kind of round out your team and kind of fix areas that need to be fixed. But true cup-winning teams, for the most part, are made in season and at the deadline when GMs are out there making those small tinkers or sometimes big tinkers to give their group the extra boost. And we haven't seen it yet. Hopefully next year is different, but I am very eager to see how the summer goes. And I'm hoping for a much more active deadline next year for Fitz after we kind of see how the season plays up to that point and what the team needs. You talk about all the guys that need to be moved. We all know about that. And then you kind of refer to the continuity of his paycheck will depend upon doing exactly that. I think his paycheck is pretty secure for a while now. If somehow we tank next season, I could see a world where maybe there is some chatter. But for the most part, I think Fitz is fairly secure in his job. I do think, for as many complaints as I do have about him and things that he has done and not done, pertaining to drafting, trades, whatever it may be, he does have some limitations from the ownership group, and it's unfortunate. I'm not going to get into a bunch of that now, but we've talked about this before. A lot of you know how I feel about that, but he is slightly handcuffed, and, he has to work kind of within those constraints. But it's no excuse for some of the things we've seen. Got to be more active in the season, but thank you for that comment, HighStick28. And we go to the next comment, Newark Devils 66. I think we are spinning our wheels with the GM. He had the team in 22-23 to build off of. The team went from fast, young, and tenacious to old, slow, and overpaid. Okay, so, spinning our wheels with the GM. I don't think I'm spinning my wheels with the GM. I think I am very well over this administration and would like to see some new blood brought in just because of how things have went. And to your point, from 22-23, that season, franchise record 112 points, and we beat the Rangers in 7 games, and then we got crushed in the second round. But that season should have been the turning point, and I thought it was. I was like, all right, we finally arrived. This core, great regular season, got to the playoffs. They got a taste of it, a massive rivalry with the Rangers in the first round, winning 7 games. This should be the turning point now where every season we are trying to win the cup, making moves to win a cup. Win now. Franchise record-setting season. The core pieces are in place. It's time to be a perennial contender for the next 5 to 8 years, whatever it is. And it hasn't happened. It hasn't happened. After that season, obviously, 23-24, we missed the playoffs. Fitz had his hand in his pockets while we drowned with near league worst goaltending for most of the season. And at some point, it actually was the league worst. Schmidt and Vanacek just completely fell apart. The whole world knew it. We all knew we needed goaltending, and he did nothing and watched the team slowly drown and then goes out and gets Kakinen and Allen on deadline day. Too late, bud. We get 2 goalies on deadline day, and it just didn't make sense. Like, there was all the excuses why we couldn't get any goalie all season long, and to me, it was just lip service nonsense, and it infuriated me because I do believe, without a doubt, had we gotten Kakinen, Allen, or any other just an average NHL goaltender in January or probably even early February of that 23-24 season, the team could have clawed into the playoffs. And again, for all of you that, we weren't going to win the cup and this and that, teams don't just win the cup overnight. And I've stressed the importance of this so many times. It is a process. Teams have to keep getting to the playoffs, win a round, win 2 rounds, whatever it is, as a group. Go through the battle, learn what it's about, get the experience, and keep building off of it. To make the playoffs after that great season in 22-23 and miss the playoffs the following year is calamity. Absolute calamity, catastrophe. It cannot and should never have happened. Should have never happened. So shame on all the people that we weren't going to win the cup. I don't believe in tanking. Tanking is a loser mentality, nonsense thing. You must try to win the games and go as far as you can every single year. I don't want to hear about, play for the better draft pick. That is all loser mentality nonsense. Winning programs and winning teams do not do that. They want to make the playoffs every year and see how far they could get. And so for that 23-24 season to just slowly drown because of goaltending when everyone knew it and then just to fizzle out at the end there, it was painful. And to me, was massive steps backwards from that beautiful 22-23 season. Massive steps of regression. And then this year, we have a hot start. I do believe by late January, there was a lot of troubling things that should have been addressed. And at worst case, should have been addressed at the deadline. They never were. We limp into the playoffs and get waxed. And so when you look at where we are as of today, I do like a lot of the things that were done, obviously, with Fitz's last offseason. Markey and net, that's great. Dylan Kovacevic, some nastiness on the blue line. Cotter and Nason up front, bring some snarl there. But if you're being realistic about it, where do we stand today in comparison to where we did after they got knocked out in 22-23? They were knocked out in the second round, right? Since then, 2 seasons have went by, missed the playoffs, and out in 5. I would say we are further away from a cup today than we were 2 years ago in May of 2023, fresh off of a second-round loss to Carolina. And so for me, where's the excuses? How do you excuse it? Precious years of the core are burning off. Again, guys, 8 seasons of jesperbratt and nicohischier. They've played in the playoffs 3 times, won a single round and 7 total games. The time to win is now. I don't know how you could look at this any other way. 22-23, it should have been the start of it. It should have been the start of something beautiful. The first step of becoming a perennial playoff team and really pushing for a cup every year. It hasn't happened. And in my opinion, we're multiple steps behind where we were then. In 2 years, with a very promising core, some promising young kids like Lukehughes, obviously Shimo Nemitz, it can't happen. And so for me, I'm at a loss for words how anyone could kind of look at the state of the team today compared to where we were 2 years ago and feel good about it. I certainly do not. I am certainly pissed, and I do think the last 2 seasons have been wasted. I cannot look at it any other way. You got to try to push for a cup, got to win now, and you have to make moves to reflect it, and we haven't seen it. In my opinion, I know a lot of you disagree with me. I know a lot of you will agree with me, but I just don't see how you can make the argument that we're better off today than we were 2 years ago, coming off a second-round loss. I just can't see it. Then you go on to say the team went from fast, young, and tenacious to old, slow, and overpaid. I think that's a bit extreme. A lot of the main pieces are still here. Yeah, we did move on from some bottom 6 guys. But I wouldn't say we're like totally an old team. There is several overpaid guys, which you're going to have on every team. Not every contract is going to be a winner. Not every contract is going to age well. But I do think there is one piece. And again, I'm not making excuses for anybody because I do think the past 2 seasons have been deplorable, in my opinion, in terms of moves made to help the team and overall kind of maneuvering as an organization. But the one thing I will say, and it's not to make an excuse, losing Michael McLeod for absolutely nothing with his whole legal issue is a massive blow that a lot of you talk about, but a lot of people forget. Mikey McLeod was on track to set an NHL record in terms of face-off wins. Face-off win percentage, I think it was actually. I don't think it was the total number of wins, but he was going to finish the season with a record, it was like over 60%, I believe. A face-off wizard, one of the best bottom 6 guys in the league, and he was having a career year, and he was a little ball of fire. He could do everything. He was making nice passes, hitting guys, scoring some goals, and we lost him for nothing. And so, again, not to excuse it, but that is another piece off of that 22-23 team that was never replaced. How are you replacing a guy like McLeod? Face-off whiz and does a little bit of everything. Fiery guy. I loved McLeod as a player, and he was never replaced, and it's not easy to replace guys like that. But that is, to me, the one massive, massive hit, and then people want to talk about, like, Sharon Govich and stuff. Like, listen, after we moved on from Sharon Govich, he had a great year in Calgary when he was looking for a contract, and then this past season, he kind of sucked. Totally did not live up to his contract, and so I am not shedding a tear that we don't have Sharon Govich. For the people to still cling on to that, after the season he just had, I mean, listen, we're not missing anything at that price tag. I did think he was a promising young player on the Devils during that season. I was rooting for him, but in the end, they made the deal for Toffoli, and I will not kill Fitz for that. A lot of people are still killing Fitz about the Toffoli deal. Toffoli was a win-now move. After that 22-23 season, he was like, all right, I'm going to make that may have been one of his more aggressive moves, honestly. I'm going to include Sharon Govich in a deal for Toffoli, which signified win now. I wanted to see more of that. Win now. Didn't work out, obviously. Love Tyler Toffoli still to this day. We didn't re-sign him, obviously. But Toffoli was a win-now move, and I will not complain about Fitz making that deal whatsoever. I would like to see him make more of that. Sometimes you got to make those hard deals to try to win now, and we are well into the win now mode for the Devils. 8 years of Bratter and Nico Hischier, guys. Nico has 2 years left on his contract. There's no guarantee what's going to happen beyond that, and I've talked about this in depth. I'm not going to keep going on a rant, but there is a real possibility that Nico Hischier explores other opportunities in free agency. That is a real fear of mine, and I do think if things aren't done to make him believe that the team is going in the right direction and going to legitimately compete for a Stanley Cup soon, he may be out. There's going to be half the league is going to be lined up throwing big-time contract offers at him to try to get him. Nico is a guy that, on an established playoff team already, could really be the guy to bolster them to get to a cup. And that's my biggest fear. But, yeah, McLeod was a big loss. And that one, I think, kind of goes under the radar a little bit. Sharon Govich, I'm not going to cry too much about. Miles Wood, I liked him too. High energy guy, but he had his limitations. So in the end, on paper, I've said going into this past season, I liked the 24-25 Devils on paper more than I did in the 22-23 season. Because again, you have all the core pieces there. Bratter, Jack, Nico, Timo, all here. A more seasoned Luke Hughes. Markey and net. A much better defense, in my opinion, with Dylan and Kovacevic brought in. Brett Pesce. I mean, on paper, I like the team better. Now, the results weren't there for whatever reason, and a lot of them. And I do think, the bottom six fell off a cliff. The production dried up, and it's going to be hard to win. When the top guns aren't performing and your bottom six does not contribute, it's a recipe for disaster, and we saw that at points of this season. But in the end, I don't think that the team had this drastic change from fast, young, and tenacious to old, slow, and overpaid. I don't see it, but a lot of things kind of went into it. I feel your frustration, Newark Devil. Hopefully next season is, a more promising one, because I don't know how many more years of the same old tune I'm going to be able to take anymore. My patience is wearing thin, but thank you for your comment, Newark Devil 66. And then I get to King D-Bag. He writes, I disagree with making moves this season. The Devils were absolute dog shit since mid-December. In parentheses, even with Jack, we would have had to replace a minimum of 4 to 5 players that were going to be game changers. We didn't have the cap or assets to do that. I think a lot needs to happen this offseason for sure. So this I completely disagree with, right? I could not disagree with this comment more. Every season with this core is precious. Jacob Markstrom was here for 2 years. Now, I'm hoping he stays beyond that, but he had 2 years left on his deal. This past season was year 1. That is a win-now move. Markey is in the twilight of his career. Jacob Markstrom deserved much better. He is chasing a cup. He wants to win a cup. Fiery competitor, love Markey, wants to win more than anything. He's been in the league for a while, and he wants to win a cup. He wants to do it here. And you have to win now. You got to win now, and you got to make win-now moves. And so, yes, I understand that Jack went down, but in the end, if your team is completely reliant on a single individual that, and this goes for any sport, and it's like, oh, if that guy goes down, we're done. Like, there's no chance. Then your team is severely flawed. Severely flawed, because you see injuries to big-name players across the league in every sport, but teams don't just pack it up. And so, yes, they struggled since mid-December with Jack, but we saw flashes of a very good team here and there down the stretch with the Devils. We really did. The flashes were there, and I do believe that you're saying 4 to 5 players. I mean, yeah, in an ideal world, but you weren't going to do that all in one season. But is anyone going to tell me that Taylor Hall or Zetterlund or imagine both teams are making moves? I firmly believe, and this is going to go back to Chico's question from earlier in the video. You said 4 to 5 players. I believe Taylor Hall and Zetterlund alone, those two guys, which would not have cost a lot. We could have done that. We could have made those moves. Those two guys alone could have been game changers, because despite not having Jack, and despite our defense being decimated going into the series, and Luke and Dylan getting hurt in game 1, we still gave them hell for the most part. Yes, we got crushed in game 1, but every other game the Devils were in, those games were there for the taking. And so I am sorry. I live in a world where if you had guys like Taylor Hall and Zetterlund brought in at the deadline, that could have been the difference in a lot of those games, and it could have been the difference in the series. Now, am I saying we 100% would have won? No, I'm not going to talk in absolutes and be a crazy person, but I firmly believe with two guys like that, again, back to Hall and Zetterlund, that could have been the difference between winning or losing that series against the Hurricanes. I firmly believe that. If those guys were brought in, even with all the injuries, we still had a chance to win. And the craziest part about it, guys, and this is what really, and this is why I've been this whole way, the whole season, and especially after the deadline and leading into the playoffs, had we gotten a couple guys to help us get over the hump of the Hurricanes, call me crazy, I firmly believe we would have beat the Capitals. I think we matched up better with them than the Canes to begin with. Now, I did want to play the Canes for redemption, and obviously they once again beat us, and I hate them so much with a passion because of their domination over us for the past 20 years. But I'm looking at a world where I do believe if Hall and Zetterlund, again, I'm going to use those two guys as an example, but two guys in that realm. There was other guys to be had, guys that got dealt, guys that didn't get dealt. Those types of moves could have gotten us to the conference finals. And a lot of you are going to flame me for it, but the reality is the Canes were and are a better team than the Capitals, despite what the regular season standings showed. And so had we been able to beat the Hurricanes in that first round, I do think we would have beat the Caps in the second round. We would have been looking at a matchup in the conference finals with either Florida or Toronto. I mean, wow. I don't think that's delusional whatsoever. A lot of you will dismiss it and say that it's crazy, but I do not believe it was. Those games with the Hurricanes were so close, and they were there for the taking, and a couple guys could have made the difference in those games and the series, and we could have won. And so I will never go along with more of this defeatist loser mentality stuff of, you know, this guy was hurt and we can't try. Seasons are ticking off, guys. 8 seasons of Nico and Bratter. I mean, how many are we going to try to compete in their 12th year? I mean, it's ridiculous. And as far as you said, we didn't have the cap or assets to do that. We absolutely did. We had $13 million in LTIR money, or around there, between Jackhughes and Dougie Hamilton. An insane amount of LTIR money that was not used, and we didn't use Dougie's LTIR money the season before. And so this has been a very problematic issue, in my opinion, is the ownership's unwillingness to spend LTIR money. But we had the cap space for sure to make meaningful moves at the deadline. And we had the assets. We had, I believe, going into the deadline, 4 second-round picks. We have some prospects. There was pieces to make moves. So, again, for me, this is all just excuses. King D-bag. We had cap. We had assets. We could have made moves. And just to clarify further, I'm not talking about getting strictly rentals. That's not what I'm talking about. Now, Zetterlund probably would have been strictly a rental just based on what the rumors were that he wanted for money-wise in a contract. So if that wasn't even the cards, fine. I still would have taken him as a rental. But there was guys with term that would have been here for the rest of this season in the playoffs and then a couple years beyond. And so I wasn't suggesting go out there and burn all these assets on pure rentals, but get guys with term that will be here for the future. Because obviously we all knew heading into the deadline that there was going to be needs for next season. That was no secret. It was like a lot of things need to happen. And you kind of have the deadline as the first wave to approach fixing this. And then you have the draft time with all the trades and free agency. But there was clear needs then for the future. And I do think there was moves to be made. And Taylor Hall re-signed in Carolina. I mean, wow. Devils could have tried to make a move for him and did the same thing. He would have been a great piece for this Devils team. And my video proof is out from months ago. Frustrating, but thank you for your comment, King D-Bag. Appreciate that. You got me all fired up now. And now we go to one of the most negative people in the channel's history, known as SST. Longtime Devils fan. I respect him for his knowledge. A lot of bad takes, a lot of negativity and hatred, but, you know, we're going to give him some airtime here. SST writes, BS. The Devils haven't got a single piece in place. None. A crippled Jack and Luke, undersized Bratt, Hamilton, who should be in a retirement home, is your main pieces. Cotter with the gargantuan single point in 5 games. Only Nico is good enough for playoffs. The team is miles away from competing for the cup, which I've been saying forever. The team should have had a new GM 2 years ago, which I've been saying forever too. With that moron, the Devils will be in a full rebuild in 2 years. Oh boy, SST. Oh my God. I mean, the negativity never ends. So we'll start at the beginning. The Devils haven't got a single piece in place. I mean, come on, man. Markey was great in net. The defense is revamped and looking very good. So for me, that's kind of where it starts. Again, I'm an old school disciple of the Lou Lamoriello hockey school. You build a team from the net out. Markey and net. Love it. He was great. Hopefully he's great next year. And the defense was solid. A revamped defense. You got veterans brought in like Pesci and Dillon. Kovacevic signed up for a while now. And so the defense really came together. They played well for most of the season. So defense and goaltending to me are not a concern. I don't know how you could say no pieces in place because to me that's the first piece of the puzzle. Now up front, there's a lot of question marks and a lot of areas that do need to be addressed. But a crippled Jack and Luke, I mean, listen, obviously I think they are injury prone. History has shown that, right? I'm not going to deny that. I'm hoping, again, these are young kids, man. Were they 21 and 24 or 21 and young kids? Hopefully in the next year or two, we get this all behind them. Now, is it a concern of mine that it will be a reoccurring problem? Absolutely. But I cannot dwell on it. Hopefully, they get their offseason conditioning right. They get, more of that man body that Fitz was referring to, and that at some point in the very near future, the injuries, or at least the constant injuries, are behind them, and we can move on from that. So, I understand the concern there. I don't know if I'd call them crippled. I think that's a little harsh. But on to your next point of undersized Bratt. I mean, Bratter had a great season. He's been our best forward for the past, at least offensively speaking, for the past 4 seasons. The guy's over a point a game. He takes his offseason training very seriously, and he's a monster. Is he a little undersized? Yes, but he is an absolute bull on the puck. He's not getting knocked off of pucks easily. He's embracing physicality. I think he was one of only 1 or 2 players, I forget, at the end of the season that had 80 points and 80 hits. He's throwing the body. He's becoming harder to knock off the puck, starting to play in all situations. I mean, I don't know how you could complain about Bratter. He's a huge piece of the team moving forward, and has been, like I said, the most productive guy for the past 4 seasons. And so I don't know how you could say anything about Bratt other than just praise and have the utmost respect for him. Bratter is the man. And then you go on to say Hamilton, who should be in a retirement home. I mean, listen, I do think it's unfortunate for Dougie because of his salary. He's often targeted by a lot of people like yourself, kind of unfairly. But in the end, I think Dougie still is an important piece of this team and could be an important piece of another team should a trade scenario arise. He creates offense, period. Now, his complete cannon blast slapper seems to kind of have disappeared after his pec injury, and I think that's, a direct kind of result of that. But he still makes plays. He still commands attention. He still has an absolute snipe of a wrist shot. He has a beautiful snapper. He could put the puck on net, create for other guys, and score. And a lot of times, like we've talked about, having a defenseman like that could put offensive pressure on the other team is a great form of defense in itself. And I do think Dougie will be missed whenever he is no longer a Devil. I have nothing bad to say about Dougie. I've been kind of rooting for him and defending him for a while now. And it even goes back to when he got hurt in the 23-24 season. I mean, you saw what he meant to the team when he went down, how he really struggled. I do think the defense now is obviously much better than then. So they can absorb a Dougie Hamilton loss much smoother than we could back then. But the fact remains, he is a valuable piece of the team. And so talking smack on Dougie, I think, is ridiculous. And I also find it completely absurd, because we know you're a blind hater, SST, that you don't even mention Timo Meier. The Timo stuff, it's driving me crazy. I can't even really argue with these people anymore. If you are not a fan of Timo Meier and completely appreciate and respect his game and what he brings to this team and how much different he is than the other types of forwards we have, then you don't know what you're looking at. Would I have liked more goals and points out of him last year? Absolutely. Absolutely. I would love to see Timo score 80 points, but that is not my expectation with everything else that he does. Heading into the season, I would have told you I'm looking for a 30-30 season out of Timo. I want to see 30 goals, 30 assists with all the other stuff he does. Crush guys, get under people's skin, just be that agitator that could be a difference maker, especially in the playoffs, and go out there and just run wild. And he did that. Slightly underwhelming in the points department, but he wasn't too far off from that 60 mark that I would like to see from him. I just, again, because of the money, I think people have unrealistic expectations, and they just need to realize all the other stuff that he does that does not show up on the stat sheet, stuff that goes beyond the points. This guy is a gem. Timo was our second best forward in the playoffs, hands down. So all the Timo disrespect is just, it's ridiculous to me. Furthermore, last point on Timo, I've talked about this a million times as well. He was playing his off wing and wasn't on power play 1 for like 75% of the season. He is much better at right wing than left wing. He was on left wing for 75% of the season. And again, he is a power play 1 guy. He wasn't on power play 1 for the majority of the season either. And so for people just to keep talking smack, like he was playing out of position and starved of power play time, and he still put up 50 whatever points he put up. What more do you want from the guy? I'm hoping that he's on right wing and power play 1 to start next season, and we see him go on a tear. We obviously saw the March of Meier once again. Once that calendar hits March, you all know Timo time's coming out in full force, and he's going to dominate. But hopefully we could see that from the start of the season, and I think it starts with him being on right wing permanently and on power play 1, and I think you'll see a much better points season from Timo, and hopefully some of you haters will shut up because it's just nauseating. You need guys like Timo to win. We have no other guys like him that could score those kind of points and do all those other things. I don't know, how people just don't see it for what it is. And then you're right, Cotter with the gargantuan single point in 5 games. I mean, how many points did you want him to have? I would have liked him to have more points as well, but I don't know why you randomly picked him. You could point to a ton of guys. The offense struggled. It really did. Not surprising. It struggled at various points of the regular season, and it struggled in the playoffs. It is what it is, and that's part of the puzzle for Fitz to fix in the offseason, is to find a way to bring in some guys that are going to be able to score goals, period. You go on to say only Nico is good enough for the playoffs. Again, based on all the other things I just said, I completely disagree. And then you say the team is miles away from competing for the cup, which I've been saying forever. Miles, I think, is a strong kind of terminology. I do think that we're closer than many people think, including you. I do think a lot of stuff has to happen, but I wouldn't call that miles. Like I said, I am very happy, very, very happy with goaltending and defense, and that's a huge part of the overall thing, right? Defense and goaltending, in my opinion, is set. So then you look at, okay, what's the offense? And again, you're hating on all the core pieces. I am not at all. They just need to be surrounded by the right complementary players to make this thing go. And I think it's maybe not as many as you think. I'm going to have more videos coming out in the summer for specific guys, because I know you guys love the specific player target type videos. And I do have a couple coming out. But I don't think it's miles. I just don't. I think it's realistically probably 4 or so forwards between top 6 and bottom 6 that, if you get the right guys and really hit those moves out of the park, it will make an exponential difference. I firmly believe that, and I will be doing videos on that soon. But to say miles away, I don't think so. This team should be ready to win now, like I've been saying for years. Defense, goalie, ready to go. We got some bulls up front. Got to figure out a way to recreate that bottom 6 and add some, sprinkle in a little bit of that skilled grit, and find 4 lines that you could roll out there and get production from on a nightly basis. It's easier said than done, but it's not impossible. And so I can't say that I believe they're miles away. I do think they're close, but it's going to take Fitz making the right moves to now finish off the recipe. And hopefully he could at least do most of that work this offseason, but it's going to take some tough decisions and some tough work. The team should have had a new GM 2 years ago, which I've been saying forever too. I was done with him personally after last season, because I just thought that was such an egregious hope and wish to let a season go by where you missed the playoffs, where you were potentially a NHL average goalie away from at least clawing into the playoffs and getting that experience for the group. I was done with him after that personally, but I know you've been probably saying that for much longer. And then you say the Devils will be in a full rebuild in 2 years. I don't think that could happen. I just think we have too many good pieces and young pieces in place to ever have to go into a full rebuild. Now, a retool maybe, but we just have too many guys for 2 years to be a full rebuild. I think that's also another kind of exaggerated hot take. I do, my worst fears, like maybe in 4 years you're kind of looking at something like that, and I hope that doesn't happen. But 2 years, I just can't see it being a full rebuild in 2 years. There's still a good chance Markey's still here. We have a lot of defensemen that'll still be here, a lot of the core up front. And so I just think that's kind of exaggerated. But time will tell. I hope you're wrong. I really hope you're wrong. But SST, always interesting to read your extreme negativity, especially in the offseason. And then finally, we get to Troisky 155. Would you support the idea of the Devils signing Marner ace? This has come up in the past as well, and I am a firm no. Absolutely not. Now, before everyone's like, oh, what's wrong with you, blah, blah, blah. Do I think Marner is a great player? Absolutely. His numbers, everything speaks for itself. He is a top-class player. Elite player in this league, Marner. However, I do not support the idea of signing him. And again, I think this is unrealistic because of cap restrictions, but I'll just, for this exercise, continue on here. I'm again signing him because he's going to cost a ton of money. I think most estimates now, with the cap going up, have him signing a deal for, 13, 14 million bucks a year on a long-term deal. Even with the cap going up, that is a lot of money to commit to a forward who, in my opinion, is not the right type of forward. Now, does Marner make the Devils better? Absolutely. Mitch Marner going to any team in the league is immediately going to make them better. But what you have to really look at is that player, in this case Marner, the best usage of cap dollars that you could use? Is he the best guy to spend this money on? And I'm going to say absolutely not. Going back to the points I made a little while ago in this same video, you need the right pieces. And so Mitch Marner, unfortunately, while he's a wildly skilled guy who's going to put up points, he's not going to be that playoff dog, that playoff just warrior who's going to run through walls and do whatever it takes to win. You look around the league, look at the Panthers, even the Oilers, you look at every team that's still playing right now, and they all have some of those guys. Marner, to me, is just another, for lack of a better term, another one of these skilled finesse guys like the types of guys we already kind of have right now. For me, where it's redundant. It's like, yes, he's a great player. He would make us better. But is that the best usage of the money? No. And you have to use that money on diversification. We need to diversify into a little more of those dogs. So, again, Marner, exciting player, would make the team better, but there is just so many better ways to use that money, in my opinion, because I do not think he is going to be a magical piece to fix the team and get him to the next level. I just don't. I just don't see it. And listen, if somehow we got him, would I be excited? Absolutely. I'm not a crazy person. You get a guy like that, you got to be excited about it. But I just think there's better usage of the money. And I'll have some videos in the next week or two about some specific guys I would like to see targeted. But for me, Marner would be a hard no, Troyski. But wow, this might be one of the longest. I'm sweating under these lights. This might be one of my longer videos. Very much appreciated to anyone who made it to this point. This has been a record. This has definitely been a record. Oh my God, we're approaching an hour here. Easily a record for a regular video, not including streams, obviously. But I said a very lot here. Again, thank you all for your continued support with you watching the videos, liking, commenting. I'm going to try to do more of these mailbag kind of things because I do think people make a lot of interesting points, whether I agree or disagree, that are worth talking about in a video versus me just typing out a response. But let me know what you guys thought about anything I said in this video. And there was a lot. Anything, everything, Devils hockey, throw it out there in the comments. I enjoy talking to all of you. I'll be back soon. I'm working on a ton of stuff. I got a lot going on in my personal life, just a whole lot of stuff where I'm not able to get in here and kind of talk to the folks as much as I'd like. But it's been a fun ride. Playoffs roll on. I'll be doing the second round kind of update soon when all of those series wrap up. But yeah, guys, wow. This was a long one. I'm sweating in here. But throw it all out there in the comments. I'll be back soon. I'll talk to you all soon. Thank you all for watching. I love you all. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that jazz. Until next time, friends, let's go down.